super excited today because you guys know how much I love Isa Herrera. And she is doing some awesome stuff over the next couple of months to support all of us with our pelvic issues. And Isa, whenever I initially promoted your masterclass, I got so many emails back from women. I had women, as you know, because I reached out to you, begging me for some kind of payment plan for your program because this is the very thing that she's been looking for. I had other women just saying, oh my God, this is the kind of help that I really need. I can't believe you're talking about this. I'm so excited that you introduced me to Isa. I mean, so many women really felt like finally, help has arrived. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Help is here. And so I'm super excited to have you back because I know you're doing a really special program right now to help women like those in the Healing Rosie community who are dealing with all sorts of pelvic issues. And you tackle a topic that is almost shameful and hush hush. We don't want to talk about like leaking problems or, pain having sex or all of the other like pelvic organ issues that happen in our female parts that physically create discomfort in our lives. And you've like completely normalized this and created space for us to talk about this. So I'm so honored to know you. And I'm so happy that you're here to talk to us today. And I'd love for you just to tell us about what you have going on, because I know you have a new class coming up.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, because I love you too. We have a romance going.
I feel so much love.
I always tell everybody that I help women have happy vaginas, right?
Yes, please.
100%, yes, because we need it. And the thing is, for a long time, I have this mission of helping 1 million women heal from pelvic floor dysfunction, leaking, prolapse, pain. And I said, how can I do this? How can I do this? And one of the ways that I can do it is by providing these master classes that I love doing and giving really valuable content and actionable content that you can use right away to transform, whatever condition you have in the pelvis. So I'm super excited for that to come up. I'm super excited to help everybody in the Healing Rosie community. And I'm just super excited to be here today.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's been really interesting to me is I have not personally in my own life, I haven't hit the place where I'm having a lot of uncomfortable pain and issues with the pelvic area. But ever since I met you, I've been so curious about this. And then I hear from so many women who are like, oh my God, this is what I need. It really seems to me that our lifestyles, especially in the Western world, cause some kind of atrophy or something to go on in the pelvic area that even our mothers and grandmothers weren't dealing with. I don't remember the issues that I'm hearing about in our community being talked about even privately by my mom or my aunts, So something is shifting in the way that we move and in the way that we take care of ourselves that is making this a really, really important area for us to talk about. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually the lack of movement that's really hurting women. I consider sitting to be the new smoking for the pelvic floor, right? Sitting is, and I mean, the research shows that many of us can sit for 8+ hours a day, sometimes in really poor posture, right? And when we sit in poor posture, sometimes that's blocks the circulation, blood flow to the pelvis. It creates more tightness. And when it's tight, it's weak because the pelvic floor muscles are out of balance. But sometimes even the nerves get upset with us, right? And the thing is, something as simple as sitting every day, what we do, how our stations are set up in, ergonomically, it's the small things in life that make sometimes the biggest differences. And I think you're right. There's this atrophy of the pelvis. One, because we don't pay enough attention to it and we don't exercise it the way we exercise. If we spend as much time on our vaginas as we did in Soul Cycle, we'll all be good, right? Yeah. But the thing is there's and it's not our fault because there's so, there's not enough information out there on how to exercise this body part correctly, effectively for long-term success.
So one of the things along these lines that I've been learning just as I've been supporting the women in our community is how many of the issues that we're dealing with are actually tied to pelvic health. In fact, there are women who are experiencing issues around fibroids and endometriosis and diagnoses that we're familiar with, polycystic ovarian syndrome, that I have heard experts in our space talk about pelvic therapy, working with a pelvic floor therapist, which I didn't even know there was such a thing before you. But working with a pelvic floor therapist can help with so many of the conditions that we're dealing with as women. Can you speak to that a little bit? What are some of the common conditions that we're dealing with that maybe that we don't think, oh, I need a pelvic floor therapist to help with that if we only knew, you know what I mean?
That's a great question. The thing with the pelvic floor muscles is that they're centrally located, right? They're like Grand Central Station. They're connecting the upper and lower body, and they can affect the nerves, the organs, multiple systems. So women who have menstrual cramps, for instance, sometimes if you work with a pelvic floor therapist or you're doing your own work, which I encourage everyone to do their own work, it can alleviate some of that, right? Because we're knowing more how to connect to our bodies. Sometimes if there's pain with in the low back, right? Because 96% of women with low back also have pelvic floor dysfunction. So if you start to work on the pelvic floor, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like everybody. It's like everybody. So SI joint, low back pain, sciatica, menstrual cramps, this feeling like you got to rush to the bathroom all the time, looking for Mr. Good bathroom. I call it urgent incontinence. It's huge, but a lot of people think I have a small bladder. There's no such thing as a small bladder. The bladder can hold up to 4 hours of, up to 4 hours before we have to go to the bathroom. But sometimes it's kind of like we think that these things are normal part of our lives, but just because it's common doesn't make it normal. And doesn't, we don't have to live with it.
And that's true of so many things that we're talking about in our community. Is there's so many things that are common, but it definitely doesn't mean that they're normal. So a pelvic floor therapist, I've had women look for pelvic floor therapists in their community. Sometimes they're easy to find. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes women they feel like they're barking up the wrong tree when they even talk to their doctors about thinking maybe pelvic floor therapy is what I need. Other women have said things like, it's really expensive to work with a pelvic floor therapist. My insurance isn't going to cover it. Some of our symptoms aren't so significant or egregious that it's like connected up in the standard of care for women to be using pelvic floor therapy as part of their treatment. So it becomes an out-of-pocket expense. Can you talk to us about if someone really wanted to work with a pelvic floor therapist in their area, what's the best way to go about vetting a pelvic floor therapist? Do you know anything about like how the insurance side of this works? And then I want to talk a little bit about what you've created too.
Sure. Now, I ran a practice on Madison Avenue for 12 years. And in the beginning, I used to take insurance all the time. And then I started seeing this trend. Most of my time was fighting for appeals for my patients. It became a full-time job, and I had to let go of the insurance. And when I noticed that insurance companies would tell women, oh, you could only get 4 visits with a PT, or they will deny the care that they needed because the symptoms are not like life-threatening, right? They cripple our lifestyles, but yet it's not enough for an insurance company to cover it. That's when I pivoted and I said, I'm going to go online. I'm going to do an online program because women need this work, and women need to be able to get affordable work that they can trust and that they know they're in a safe place. And that was one of the main reasons, because it became even harder and harder for me to stay in business with the way insurance companies are today, denying care, giving you the runaround, not reimbursing you the adequate amount. So those are the important things. I think if you're looking for a pelvic PT, you should make sure that they have experience, and you should ask for a recommendation. Like for me, I believe like if I'm going to work with a practitioner, I'm going to ask for a referral. I don't work with anybody anymore unless I get 1 to 3 referrals about their work. And I do that because I've been burned before with pelvic therapists when I first started out, and I wasn't a pelvic floor therapist. I didn't know where to turn. You can also look for certain qualifications like women's health, physical therapy through the APTA. You can also go through the Herman and Wallace Institute, which is a practitioner care. So you can look for certifications. WCS is a big one. PPRC is a big one. So I think those are the main things. And then you must trust the person. And then the person should be able to show you how to care for your body so you're not beholden to them, right? Because our job as practitioners is to awaken your inner doctor and to show you how to do it so that we become obsolete. My job has always been to make myself obsolete, right? Which is one of the reasons why I think I had a super successful practice on Madison Avenue, because I always gave the women what they needed. I never held back. So you need to work with somebody, but you also need to know how to care for your own body, right? That combination is powerful.
Mm-hmm. So there's several things that are coming up for me as I'm listening to you talk. And a big one is, this is something that even our mainstream practitioners often don't know, that pelvic floor therapists even exist. I mean, there's people in our community that I've talked to that don't even realize this is a thing, but yet it's so like crucial for women who are having a lot of these issues. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the connection between our pelvic floor and sexual and bladder health? And you've kind of touched on it a little bit here, there, in what you were just sharing about the bladder. But if I was having issues with incontinence, I wouldn't think I need pelvic help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I were having painful sex issues, I wouldn't think I need a pelvic floor therapist. So help us understand how the pelvic floor is connected to these crucial areas of our body's functioning.
Great question. The thing with the pelvic floor is that it's the basin of our existence. It holds our organs up, right? And if we've had a pregnancy or not a pregnancy, if we're an athlete, if we put stress on the bodies, these muscles can become very weak and loose, right? Or weak and lose their ability to contract. So what happens is we forget that these are muscles like every other muscle in the body. And then, and like if we had an issue, we want to get really fit, we will hire a personal trainer, right? We will know that that would be the way to go. If we're having an issue with our pelvis, with our vaginas, then we would need to know that we will have to hire the appropriate person, and that would be a pelvic floor therapist, right? But in other countries, this work is routine for women. In the US, it's not well known. It's better now. Trust me, when I first started on this journey and I was a pelvic PT, there was no, when I needed help, sometimes you have to drive 2 hours to find somebody, that can help you, a pelvic therapist. So I think that women's health pelvic therapist is something that all women should go to for preventative care, to manage your care, to learn what to do, and to recapture your pelvic vitality, and also many of these conditions that we talked about before, like endometriosis, fibroids, polycystic ovarian syndrome, vestibular vulvodynia. These things sometimes can be tremendously helped with the right pelvic exercises.
Mm-hmm. So when you say pelvic exercises, you're pretty popular for kind of just like dispelling this idea that Kegels fixes everything. Like when we think of pelvic floor health, we just think of Kegels. Why don't you tell us, clear the air, what do we really need? I understand from your work that there's a whole lot of different ways that someone can do Kegels, and that's maybe not even the exercise set that you always recommend.
Yeah, it really depends, right? Like we have to figure out where we are. And I'm going to cover this in great detail in the masterclass, where I'm going to give you a line of questioning. You're going to figure out what kind of pelvic floor you have. The main thing is that for every action, there's a reaction. For every Kegel, there's a reverse Kegel. There's no such thing as creating continuous tension in the pelvis and not opening and relaxing, right? That would be like going to the gym and doing a lot of bicep curls like this instead of going down and up, down, down and up, right? So the thing is, women with pain are not appropriate for Kegels, first of all. That's just going to make their condition worse and give them something that I call Kegel tension syndrome.
Now, why is that?
Because what happens when you do excessive Kegels and you have pain, you create more tension, more spasms, and more trigger points within the pelvic floor. And manual work many times is necessary. That means that you have to go in there, you have to stretch, you have to massage, and you have to do trigger point release, right? Because the same way that you get a knot on your neck, you can get a knot inside that can make your life a complete misery. And this knot can give you bladder symptoms. So you're thinking, oh my God, I got yeast. Oh my God, I got yeast infection. Oh my God, I got, UTI. And what's happening is that you actually don't. So you should always get tested first. But what you have are trigger points or maybe muscles that are too tight, squeezing everything down, giving you those symptoms, which is why you always need to be tested first.
Mm-hmm. Is that pretty common? Women think they have UTIs or some other kinds of infection, and it's actually just issues with tension.
Yeah,
And
100%. It's so common. I can't even tell you. Thousands and thousands of women I've seen with this condition. And the thing is, and then they take the antibiotics and then they take the pain meds and they take all this. And in reality, the root cause of their problem has never been addressed. Sometimes their muscles haven't been examined. So that's why I encourage everyone, like with the way we do monthly breast exams, I recommend that everybody do a monthly vulvovaginal exam, go internal, figure out, do your muscles, do the outside. Really, really important to understand what's our unique anatomy. Everybody is unique. And what's actually happening in the pelvic floor that
yeah,
we can fix naturally and holistically.
I think it's fascinating that you even have a way that we can check ourselves out.
Yeah,
You
I have a
know,
whole process for that. One thing that I realized was that a lot of women that came to see me, I've treated over 14,000. They would be like, I've never put my finger in there. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, girl, if you can't do this for yourself, who's going to do this for you? If you can't go in there and assess your own muscles for a Kegel, for a reverse Kegel, for tension, once you know the anatomy, of course, which I go into great detail on that in my programs, I really believe that women have to test themselves, even if they're seeing a professional for it, so that you can get confirmation and you can start to trust your body. Because so
mm-hmm.
much of this is like, we feel that, I mean, I felt like this. Oh my God. I felt like my body had betrayed me. I felt like half a woman. I couldn't, I was wearing my panty liners. I couldn't have intimate relations with my husband. Every time I went back, the doctor said everything looked fine. Everything was fine. But I'm like, how is it even possible that everything is fine? I was so miserable and I was so ashamed, embarrassed for what,
Mm-hmm.
and if I had known that I can simply test myself, I think, that would have saved me, a lot of money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on procedures, Botox injections, you name it. I tried it. And I think that it would have liberated me to feel like connected and whole again and loved, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lonely battle and we
Yeah,
suffer in silence. And thank God for your community
yeah,
because it allows for this conversation to happen. So
absolutely.
important.
Yeah. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the pelvic floor and its connection to digestion? And the reason why this is so important for us is we talk a lot about the role of gut health in our overall health. And
Hmm.
there are women who are actively involved in a gut healing protocol. We talk a lot in our community about Healthy Get Healthy by Dr. Mark Ruzio and how powerful that program is for helping us get our gut health on track. I would never consider that part of gut health would be tied to my pelvic floor.
Oh, 100%. The thing is, the microbiome, you have to heal the microbiome in order to have exquisite pelvic floor function. You have to. They both are connected, vaginal flora, microbiome. But the thing also is while you're healing, the most important thing, a lot of women suffer from constipation or loose stools, right? And they're thinking, well, it's my digestion, it's my food, it's this and that. But simply your constipation can be happening because it could be a physical condition because the pelvic floor muscles are too tight and you can't open to let everything come out, right? So that's the connection there. Really, really important too, that when you're doing the gut healing, that you do the pelvic healing so that you can synchronize your bowel and bladder movement. So it doesn't feel like there's something always trapped inside, especially when you're doing the gut where you have to really eliminate quite frequently and you really have to be on top of your game with the water and everything. So that's one of the main things with the gut connection. And the other thing is that I find if there's a lot of tightness in the belly, right? So I teach a lot of abdominal rolling and a lot of trigger point releasing in the belly, and I cover this in my master class. You have to sort of soften the belly. We're just trained to suck it in, right? Suck everything, and it's true, right? I've been
I
there.
love
I
your fish
know.
face.
Yeah, and I'm like everybody. They come to my office and they're all in. I'm like, girl, no, 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 no. You're constricting your digestion. You're constricting the blood flow. You're creating trigger points because the pelvic floor muscles and the abdominal muscles, which are the sort of the base for the intestines, they're connected like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If you're over crunching, if you have a diastasis recti separation, if you have trigger points, it's going to affect the way you eliminate, and how you feel about your bowel and bladder, whether that becomes something like you're constantly, by the way, don't push for defecation and urination. That's like the worst thing that you can do for pelvic health and gut health.
Don't push.
Don't push.
Unpack that. How come?
Because when you push, what happens is you create excessive stress and strain to the pelvic floor muscles. And what happens is they become tighter, right? When you push, you think you're going to open and release, but actually when you push, they contract.
Constricting, yeah.
And then you can't poop, you can't pee, digestion is off, microbiome, it's a big mess.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much we don't know about this area.
Every
thinking, gosh, this should be like a fundamental part of all of our education.
Oh, would I love to see this in high school? I asked my daughter, like, what did they teach you in sex ed? Basically, you're going to die if you have sex. I'm like, no, they shouldn't be teaching that. They should be teaching proper pelvic health,
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
Well, I love that you are releasing your masterclass again. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what to expect in this upcoming masterclass? And by the way, it's free, y'all. So
yeah. Well, this masterclass is brand new material. I'm sure your community has not seen this material. Many people have not. And I'm going to go through some trigger point work, abdominals, alignment. It's going to be turbo. When you leave there, you're going to have so many actionable tools and tips and techniques that you can use. I also give a little bit of a workbook. So I like it to be interactive. So you're following and you're learning instead of me just giving you all this information. And honestly, it's the missing link. These little steps that I'm showing everybody is part of a greater program. And at the end of the masterclass, if you're called to it, I'm going to invite you on a healing journey with me, where I'm opening up my program for enrollment. And and this is the gateway to having a happy vagina. And these 5 steps that I teach you are the foundational principles that even most doctors can't even tell you about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you leave there, you're going to be like, poof.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited that you're doing this for us and for women everywhere who are dealing with this issue. I know this is something that is very widespread in our space, not just the women in the Healing Rosie community, but, just at large. I love that women's health is getting a lot more airtime, and there's amazing people like you, Isa, who are stepping up to help us navigate this terrain and giving us tools to actually make a change in the life that we're experiencing. When I started my journey in 2011, there was very little that was specifically female focused. I was fortunate to come across, Rob Wolf and Mark Sisson. They had really great work that introduced me to concepts I'd never heard of before. But what I'm experiencing as a woman is different from what the men in our space are experiencing. And while all of that information has been helpful to me, my gosh, what I'm learning to really customize my own healthcare plan and create results and traction in areas I didn't even know was possible for women is just so inspiring to me. So thank you so much for doing this and for picking up this mantle and taking a stand for women who are having these pelvic floor muscle issues everywhere. There's so many of us, and you are the only one that's banging the drum for this. And I'm really honored to know you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the beautiful, kind words. And thank you for having community like this, where the women can come and get the real deal information.
Yeah.
Because the internet is, how it is. Every other person is an expert. Yep. But when your community actually just filters out everything, it just brings you the real truth. And that's why I think it's I just think it's exquisite. And I want to thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Well, glad we could partner together. You guys sign up for Isa's masterclass. I am taking her masterclass right along with you. I want to learn everything I can about this area.
Thank you.
You guys do too. And this isn't just for you. The person that's on the other side of this video, sister, this isn't only for you. This is for your girlfriend. This is for your daughter. This is for your mother. This is for your daughter's teacher. This is for all of the women in your life. It's important that no matter where we are in our own journey, we're sure we can get help for ourselves, but it's up to us to let our girlfriends know that this information is out there and that they can have help too. So Share this with people that you know need it and will benefit. I actually started doing something different this time that I alluded to initially, is I'm starting to do these Facebook Lives on my page and then sharing them into the group so that you guys could share these videos. So if there's someone that you know would benefit from getting this information, I hope you will share it with them. And if you want to know when I'm going live, I will be happy to let you know if you just want to type live, and I will send you a notification in Messenger every single time we're going live with interviews. And click the link for Isa's masterclass. If you're on Facebook, it's in the status. If you're on YouTube, it's down in the description. And Isa, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yes.
I love always connecting with you.
Yes.
It's just always a beautiful pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks everyone for joining. If you have questions, drop them below. I'll make sure that we tag Isa.
Yeah, totally. Now I'll go back and answer them 100%. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. We'll see y'all.
Thank you.